Hello YouTube, this is Mahadev the Thunder Wizard. How are you all? Alright, so today I just wanted to share what was coming to my mind. Today I had an experience of this, and so I think I want to share with you my experience and my opinion of what may be coming up for all of us. I believe it is possible that the new 5D Earth, which is pulling itself away from what I'm going to start calling the 2D Earth, that the new 5D Earth is going to be a physical manifestation of your dream self. Another way to look at that is your 5D avatar. But now is the time that you have to create your 5D avatar. And that is going to take some faith, belief, something on your part. So let me share with you again what I think, was it last time? I can't remember what. I think it was last time. And I was sharing with you what I have come to believe as a direct result of my interdimensional meditations. What I have come to believe is the case for 3D Earth. So, we must first start with the assumption of who you are. So get rid of the assumption that you have learned from religion, and that is kind of the instinctual understanding you have from your 3D brain and your 3D existence. And so the old assumption is that you're a tiny little created being who lives on this little planet in this solar system, in this galaxy, in this universe, and maybe a multiverse beyond that. And so you're just this tiny little thing, and that you are thrown around, moved around by forces outside of you. If you don't believe in spirituality, then you believe that you're, which is true. If you take spirituality out of it, consciousness out of it, then you are just a meat bag with a bunch of cells and neurons and things like that, and a bunch of instincts, and you're thrown about. Everything has control over you. If you believe in traditional religion, then you believe that you're this tiny little being that has been created by this extremely narcissistic, powerful deity, and everything is controlled, and you have, really no say over what happens, and you're a victim of circumstance. So that's the assumption that you've been taught to believe, and I'd like for you to completely, totally toss that in the garbage, because I've come to believe that it's absolutely untrue. And so you start from the assumption quite the opposite. You start from the assumption that you, in fact, are God. You are infinite. You are omniscient, omnipowerful. You are ever-present. You are everything that you would imagine any powerful God. Pick the God that you want. Shiva, Kali, Odin, Zeus, Quetzalcoatl, I don't care. Pick whatever God you relate to the most. You can change it later when you find out who you really are, and you can decide to be whatever God you want. So imagine that you are one of these incredibly powerful beings. And in order to increase your ever-expanding power of consciousness in this divine infinite state of who you are eternally, you play a bunch of different immersive video games. And just like the video games that we have, where you play with other people all over the world, you have to create an avatar. So, as the program is loading or whatever, you pick the avatar that you want, you decide all the different aspects about it, which gives you your strengths, your limitations, and you have this idea where you want your avatar to go so that you can, gain experience points, etc., etc. And inside that game, imagine that there are different levels. And in order to master one level, you have to learn how to overcome this problem and that problem, and you learn how to interact with your limitations. And of course, you yourself, that you are this larger being playing this in the case of humans, you're a 3D human playing this two-dimensional game. So that is what is happening here on Earth, generally speaking. That Earth is a fully immersive, three-dimensional role-playing game. You live inside, you experience life through your avatar that you've created. Now, the game does interact with you, and as a result of that, you may gain some points and lose some experience points. You may gain some power, lose some power, all of that based on the actions that you take while you're inside of the game. That is true. We would call that karma. Good karma is you end up getting a pleasant experience. Bad karma, again, that's just a name. You get a negative, unpleasant experience, but you learn from either of them, good or bad. And the game only works if you're fully immersed in it. If you're fully immersed in the game, then it works. But if you get to the point where you start to gain mastery of it, then you start to see the game for what it is, then you get to leave, and that's what we call enlightenment. From your perspective, you get to exit, quit the game, put your controller down and go, okay, well, that was fun, but I've mastered that one. Like for me, I really used to like Punch-Out. I used to play the arcade game, and then I had the original Nintendo, and that was a lot of fun, mastering that. But once you master it, it's just every single time it's just easy, and you always win. So you move on to the next game, so you can learn more. So this game, this immersive, three-dimensional video game where we have, at this point, 8 billion avatars running around in this game. And so we have 8 billion deities. And then we get into the subject of how many of those people are from one soul. That would be a whole other subject. I don't have any knowledge about that. But for argument's sake, there's 8 billion deities and their avatars here on Earth. And what has happened is that we have learned everything there is to learn. We've gained all of the valuable knowledge that we need. We have all of the data. And what's happening now is that the game is starting to run amok. And, we could say maybe it's got a virus. And so now it's time to shut the whole thing down. So, again, I have no idea if this is true or not, but the way that I am classifying it in my brain helps me a lot. So one of the things that is a stumbling block for me is this whole idea of the Earth shifting into two, which you've heard me talk about. This idea that Earth is splitting into two. There's a 3D version and a 5D version. And that's challenging for me at first, because that means that there's a version of Earth where these beautiful, powerful deities are going to end up on this other game. So I've come, it's a lot less fun. So I've come to the acceptance that this very well might be the case. I'm not attached to it. I'm not. By the way, let me just be clear. I'm not attached to any of this. If I find out that I'm wrong about all of this, I am not going to lose an ounce of sleep over it. I am not giving you this information because I'm attached to it and this is my religion and you have to believe it. And not at all. Not at all. I am trying my best to just simply learn. And what I learn, I share with you. That's it. That's how this is working. So the idea that those people who are on the what I'm calling the 2D Earth, or who will end up on the 2D Earth. In order for me to be comfortable with it, I have to believe that this will be a conscious choice of theirs. They will choose to stay. I mean, their idea will be that they're going to choose to stay, but the end result is they're going to drop down another level. I mean, some of them might choose to drop down another level if they think that will give them more power, which is, of course, the whole Rahu idea where they're going to seek after power, and it's only going to make them more ravenous and more hungry and more crazy and more miserable. So I choose to accept that possibility, and again, I'm willing to be wrong about any of it. I think that that's an accurate idea. So then we talk about, let's leave them alone now. They've made their choice. They've chosen to descend into what I call a 2D Earth, and we're ascending to what we'll call a 5D Earth. I keep having to qualify that because, again, I keep looking at it in terms of actual physics and in the actual dimensions. And when we start talking about a fifth dimensional reality, it gets so unbelievably strange that I have a hard time believing that that's what's coming. I think it's going to be a higher octave of 3D, which will give us more 5D abilities. So in terms of your avatar, if you switch to a 5D avatar, then you will have more abilities. You'll just have more abilities to manifest things in the game. So all these mixed metaphors here. All right, so leaving the 2D Earth behind, let's go to this 5D Earth. So what I'm proposing here is that my experience is that this new 5D Earth is going to be the manifestation of your dream self. So I'd like for you to look at reality as a mirror. And in my practice, when I was learning with the Maoshan guys, they would talk about the other side of the mirror. Most people would talk about the other side of the veil, but they were very specific that it was a mirror. And the other side of the mirror looks a lot like ours, except some things aren't the same. And of course, you have more powers. And if you're doing the practice, if you're doing the 5-element Maoshan practice, in case you guys want to know what it was that I was doing when I learned all this, you can go to maoshan.thunderwizard.com. That is the most powerful practice that I know of, and that is the 5-element practice that I was learning. And they would talk. It was in that context. They were talking about the mirror. It's the same mirror. If you're doing the 90-day challenge stuff, it's the same mirror. So anyway, the other side of the mirror was where you went when you achieved a certain level of power. Without getting too into it, you would pass out and you would have an out-of-body experience, and you'd go to the other side of the mirror. And on the other side of the mirror, there would be a light being that would teach you another aspect of your training that you couldn't learn on this side of the mirror. And so when you would come back from that experience, we could call it an intense interdimensional meditation. When you would come back from that experience, you would have knowledge and power and abilities that you didn't have before. Got it? So it is my belief that is what this 5D Earth is going to be. I don't know exactly what it's going to be like. There's a lot of energy hitting me as I'm talking about this. I think it'll be very similar to this Earth, but there's going to be a level of power that you have that you can't have in this current Earth normally. But it'll be normal for everybody to be able to access those kinds of things. And what I have been experiencing, my interdimensional meditations, as you know, if you've been following me, if you've read my books, it started out with me interacting with a higher dimensional being that we would consider as an extraterrestrial who happened to be in a higher dimension. And that had a radical effect on my entire psyche, was completely destroyed and is being put back together. And I was told things about myself, what I'm sharing with you, that I was a deity, you know, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, completely, totally impossible to accept from a third dimensional perspective. The being came back and said, it's extremely important that you believe what we're telling you. It's extremely important. And again, I'm doing my best to interpret it because these are coming from higher dimensional beings and it's telepathic, and my 3D brain is doing its best to translate what's being told to me, which is a whole other issue in and of itself. So those interdimensional meditations of me going up out of Earth's atmosphere in my astral body, inviting any higher dimensional guides to come physically down. I would come back into my body. I would stay in a meditative state, and they would show up in my room and they would communicate to me and transfer energy and do things like bring people from my past, my dead parents, my dead sister, my dead fiance, and working out all kinds of karmic issues with them. And then more and more of these beings showing up and talking to me. That started to shift, and it's shifted now. What started happening was they stopped just showing up physically in my room, just a little bit phased out of my physical awareness. And what was happening is I was being encouraged to do my own interdimensional traveling and to learn how to expand myself on an interdimensional level. And so as I would do that, I would, and I still do, I travel to different places and I interact with other beings on their turf instead of, you know, them on mine. And the reason for that is because you're in a heightened, you know, they're not trying to fit themselves into the third dimension and giving you fifth dimensional concepts through a third dimensional filter, which is a very challenging thing probably for everybody. Instead, I'm expanding myself into their dimensional realm, and they're still telling me all kinds of things. So they've told me all kinds of history about myself and my, you know, why I've come here, the things I've come here to learn, what it is I'm here to do, what I'll be doing in the next world when it comes. And it's still, you know, I come back from those trips and like, wow, it's just very hard to accept. So in order to stay sane, I've adopted this policy where I accept everything that they tell me at face value. If they give me a suggestion about what to do, you know, how to function in a higher dimension, how to function on a higher dimensional level in my 3D self, I follow those suggestions to the best of my ability. I do those practices, and you know, it's been very, very interesting. But I'm still a 3D person, and I still have 3D. You know, it makes it kind of challenging because, you know, there's a big part of me that just wants to say, forget all that stuff. That's just some weird fantasy thing that's got nothing to do with reality. Let's just forget that. There's a big part of me that wants to do that. And I want to, and they want me to do the opposite. They want me to start implementing and expanding my 3D reality to fit those 5D concepts, and especially the history. Because now that I've looked at numerous past lives of mine, and not only that, but lives before I incarnated, and you know, things that I was and did before I incarnated. Now that has become an awareness of who I am, I see everything differently. I see my 3D interactions with people completely differently now. And I see them and their connection to me totally differently. When I interact with somebody, and it's more than just a superficial interaction, I go to the history that I have, not of me as a 3D, but my history, in all these other realms. And I start to see who they are in other realms. I start to be able to see and experience who they might be and what it is that they're here to do. I'm well aware that they're fully wrapped up in their 3D avatar, but I'm starting to see more of who they are. And so one of the things I've come to realize is that when we get to this, I don't know if this is going to be true for everybody, everybody's different, but when we get to the 5D version, the new version of Earth, speaking for myself, I'm going to have a whole different history of who I am. And that history of who I am is going to be more apparent than it is here. In other words, in the 5D realm, people are going to interact with me based on a larger history of who I am. Whereas here in 3D, that's not possible. They can only interact with me based on, whatever 3D things they can glean from me. So why is that important for you? Because your 5D Earth will be a physical manifestation of that part of you that is part of the mirror self. And so now what you must do in order to tap into your true history is you must embrace your fantasies. Now this is going to get challenging because there are some people whose fantasies are narcissistically based, and there are some people, that's mental illness. A mental illness is somebody whose fantasy is based on their unconscious damage, and they create a false reality of themselves, and they have all this narcissistic understanding of themselves, which is always destructive to them and destructive to others. That's when you go to a loony bin and you get a really bad vibe from somebody as they're talking about, I've run into a few people here when I started talking about interacting with higher dimensional beings, and they clearly had serious mental problems, and they're conflating the two. So in order for this to work, you have to be healthy and you have to be sane. So that's why it's so important to be doing these 5 things that I talked about last time, and to make sure that you have people that you can bounce yourself off of, a mentor, counselor, therapist, 12-step sponsor, somebody that you go to and you say, I had this experience and I thought this, what do you think of that? Who can help you figure out whether or not you've gone off the deep end or not. So far, to the best of my knowledge, I have not gone off the deep end. And the way that you know that is that your physical life gets better. So if your physical life is getting worse, your relationships with other people are getting worse, your financial situation is getting worse, your health situation is getting worse. If all 3 of those things are happening, then it means that you are not doing the work to clean yourself up mentally, emotionally, psychologically, and spiritually. So you have to do that. Because one thing that will not survive in this new 5D will be lies. Lies will not manifest there. And also any kind of devaluation of yourself or others. So if you're somebody who manipulates other people, hurts other people, if you think spiritual powers means that you get power over other people, that's not going to fly over there. I've been doing this a while, and I've interacted with a lot of spiritually minded people, and some people with some power. And there have been cases with people who did practices and they gained power, and they used those powers for their own selfish gain, And those people either died or became very seriously physically ill. You can't play around with this. So if that happens in the third dimension, you're not going to be able to first off, you're not going to want to do that. Let's be clear. But right now, the temptation there is a temptation to use things selfishly. There is a temptation to operate from your fear and your self-devaluation and your lack. And if you do that, you damage yourself. That's what we're here to learn, what to do and what not to do. But this is why, again, it's really important to do the practices. So anyway, I won't go on and on about that. But I'm saying that 5D is going to be a new avatar that you create. So you may not have an awareness, assuming that I'm accurate about mine, you may not yet have an awareness of who you were before BI, before incarnation. Not just this life, but before any of your incarnations. You may not have a remembrance of who you were. You may not have an idea of how powerful you are. Some of you, I know if you've been doing this practice, I know some of you have. I've spoken to some of you and you have had the same kinds of experiences that I have. So if you have that feeling that the things that you're being shown about yourself are unbelievable and impossible, there might be some truth to that in terms of this version of Earth. But in the next version, it's going to be not only possible, it's going to be kind of mandatory that you show up as your authentic self. So one of the things I've learned is that when you learn how to imagine from a meditative mindset, when you go into meditation and you ask your heart to tell you what it is you truly want, what kind of world you want to live in, what you want to do and what you want to be in that world. What I've come to find out is that there's a much greater percentage of chance that when you imagine your fantasies, you're actually imagining the truth. And I just got a huge rush of energy as I said that, so I must be onto something. So I want you to give yourself the right to do that. This is another reason to do interdimensional meditation. And I think it's a great thing to do is to go into interdimensional meditation if you're new to it, CE5 if you're new to it, and ask the light beings to show you who you are on the other side of the mirror. Be prepared. What they show you might be very shocking to your 3D self. On paper, it sounds great. Oh man, I'm an infinite deity. But once, it's because it is so far beyond what 3D confines are that it's shocking. I don't think there's anybody that gets expanded beyond their three-dimensional self that doesn't experience some kind of a shock from it, some kind of a trauma. And you might think you're losing your mind. But we can also look at it that you're losing your 3D mind. And now we look at the movie The Matrix, the first movie, and we see what Neo was going through. And, we already know the end of the story, so we know that, we're not blown away, but if you put yourself in that, here he is, he's getting phone calls from people outside of the Matrix, and he's being shown this and shown that, and he's just like, 2 days earlier he was just some guy schlepping around, on a computer, but he had these dreams about, things beyond the Matrix. So that is, it's turning out to be true for me. And strangely enough, I seem to be getting a feeling of getting more and more comfortable with it, which most of this year I have not been comfortable with this, but I'm getting more and more comfortable with it. Well, talk to me next time I get another download and they expand me beyond where I'm at now. Maybe it won't. It won't be as easy, but Anyway, so that's what I'd like for you to do. I'd like for you to give yourself permission when you're in meditation to ask your heart what it is that you want, what it is that you want to be. Because what you imagine now is where you're going to end up. That's the message I'm here to tell you. And I'm not here to scare anybody, because I think that every single avatar on this planet can choose to upload to the next, to this new 5D Earth. I think everybody has that. It's just a matter of choice. If everybody here chooses to do it, they will go. So I don't want you to have any fear about that. But if you focus on 5D concepts, which is part of it is imagining yourself completely opposite from what you've been programmed to believe. That you're not this tiny little person on this tiny planet that is a victim of circumstance. You are an infinite being who has chosen to play a 3D virtual reality video game in order to learn. And normally you're not allowed to break out of that, attachment to your avatar. Normally the game is set up so you can't. You can never detach from it unless you die. And now, since the creators of this 3D avatar, which may include you, by the way, the creators of this 3D immersive video game, this virtual reality video game, the creators have said, it's done. It's time to end the simulation. Now, for the people who will wake up, because that's what's going to happen, while they're in their avatar, they're going to wake up to the reality of that. And it starts with coming to the awareness that what people are doing in the Matrix is just ridiculous. But then there's an internal awakening of who you are. And I'm not this tiny little person. I'm much more than that. And then, as I said, it seems there's a possibility there will be people who, for whatever reason, do not want to let go of their 3D avatar. And especially those who maybe have a lot of power and a lot of money and a lot of influence, they may not want to let go of that. So they'll want to stay. And I already know that's the case with a lot of the people who are in power. They don't want to leave. They don't want to lose their control over the masses. So they will consciously choose to stay. And then, I can't remember, I'm trying to think of a movie that it was. There's been some movies and some television shows. I think, Star Trek The Next Generation is one of them, where, one of the characters from the holodeck got out into the real world, and they ended up, putting that avatar into a recurring loop of a program, so that this avatar thinks he's out in the real world, but he's actually trapped inside on a hard drive. And I think that's what the 2D Earth is going to be, because, as it is right now, we have the ability to affect all of the other planes of existence with things like nuclear weapons. Whenever we detonate a nuclear weapon, that damage doesn't just happen in the third dimension. It goes into all of the other dimensions, and so it goes into all of the worlds and all of the other dimensions, and so that we can't tolerate that anymore. So I believe that the people who want to have that kind of power, I think they're going to go to a 2D simulation, and I have to believe that they will be walled off so that they can't harm the rest of reality. I could be wrong about that. That's just my feeling. But you will be able to go to a higher dimensional reality, and you're going to have to expand beyond where you are. So here are the challenges. You're going to have to get over your self-devaluation. You're going to have to get over your insecurity, your inability to be loved unconditionally. You're going to have to grow beyond that. You're going to have to move beyond your resentments and your judgments of others. I'm not talking about your feelings right now. You can have whatever feelings you want. This is again why I keep promoting the 12-step programs, because it's the best way to work through things like resentments that won't go away. And because people who have resentments, you can't have a resentment and not have self-hatred. It's not possible. So, when you listen to people who are full of resentment and they talk very self-righteously, and they believe that they're superior to others. People who get involved in politics do this a lot. They feel superior to others, but laced with that will be resentment and anger. And you can't be in a state of resentment and not hate yourself. And only the people who are in a process of awakening to love themselves more, only those people will be able to move forward, because you're either going to be expanding or contracting. Those are the only possibilities you have. Contraction is self-devaluation, insecurity, self-hatred, resentment of others, hatred of others, judgment of others. You're either going to go towards that and do more of that, or you're going to move away from that and do less of that. Expansion is expanding into a greater sense of self-love and self-acceptance, a greater trust. You cannot mistrust the universe and expand. Those of you who believe that higher dimensional beings are here to trap you and feed off of you, you are contracting. You will not be able to hold on to that belief and expand. You can only trust. It's okay if trusting the universe is frightening and confusing, because that's part of being in the unknown. But everything is a projection. If you do not trust the universe, you do not trust yourself. If you don't feel a loving connection to the universe, it means that you don't feel a loving connection to yourself. If you judge other people, it means you judge yourself. If you resent other people, it means you resent yourself. You can't have both. Self-righteousness is not an expansive mindset. It is okay to struggle and move past it. That's different. In fact, again, this is why on my channel I only have you do two things. I only have you ask me an honest question, which puts you in a state of openness to the unknown, or I ask that you share an honest feeling, which means without making any judgments about anything, you share a feeling. For instance, making a judgment about something would be, I feel very strongly that Jesus is the Lord. Well, that's a judgment. That is a statement. That's an opinion. That is a contraction. But if somebody says, the thought of Jesus not existing frightens me, that's a feeling. They can then come to the conclusion that, no, Jesus has to be Lord, or they can come to the conclusion that, no, Jesus never existed. They're in that state of the unknown. They're expanding. You can have your thoughts and your feelings, but you must detach from them. This is, again, what I'm telling you. When I go and I interact with these beings and they tell me things that are very challenging for me to hear, usually when they tell me something really phenomenal about myself, it always strikes me in a very challenging way, and sometimes it takes me a couple of days to recover from it. So I've made the decision for my own sanity that I accept everything they tell me, which is always positive. It's never negative. Whenever they tell me something, it's always positive. I accept it without question. And then when I come back into my body, I don't attach to it and I don't try and figure it out. Because if I try and figure it out, I'm going to be in big trouble, because I'll be using three-dimensional thinking to try and figure out a fifth-dimensional concept. I'll be using the three-dimensional self-referential program my 3D avatar has, and I'll be trying to use it on the 5D user out there who's, playing the game, who, doesn't see himself trapped as an avatar, and it won't work. So, expansion is the only way out of this. And if you expand, A way to expand is to allow yourself to imagine a completely, totally, perhaps unbelievable fantasy about yourself. Imagine yourself, you want to be queen of the universe, go for it. You want to be the most powerful healer in the world, go for it. You want to be the most amazing mystical person, go for it. You want to be mayor of an entire country, you want to be president of an entire continent, and then what would that be in the fifth dimension? Well, it wouldn't be telling people what to do, it wouldn't be controlling people, it wouldn't be getting taxes from people, it would be finding ways to use your spiritual powers to help everybody work together, to meditate, be a shaman and meditate for the whole continent so that everybody can come to a higher experience of themselves. So this is the kind of expansion we're heading towards. There are going to be people in 5D who will have positions of authority. There are beings out there who have positions of extreme authority, but they don't control people, they don't tell people what to do, they don't punish people, they don't do anything like that. The worst thing that a higher dimensional being will do that has power is they will take away power from you. If they see that you're not using power correctly, they'll simply take away some of your power so that you don't hurt yourself or somebody else. That's at least my experience. That's what I've seen. I've had interactions that have led me to that conclusion. But so the point I'm trying to say is that if you see yourself, in this life, you're just a nobody, like me, I'm just this nobody who's got this tiny little YouTube channel and I eke out a living and I bounce around the world trying to get as much surfing in as I can. You might just be, a nobody, but imagine yourself being something far greater than that. In the mirror dimension, remember, a mirror is a direct opposite reflection. The right hand is the left hand is the right hand. So if you're a nobody here, you might be the most powerful person in existence over there. You don't have any skills here, you might have mad skills over there. So allow yourself to go there. Take the concepts that you've learned from the Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life, which is finding out what your true soul desire is, and apply that to an infinite universe where you can do and be and create anything. In fact, that is the Shamanic secret, by the way, is when people used to come to me asking about, their career, I would take them through a process and help them have just the ultimate fantasy of themselves. And then I would tell them that, listen, your fantasy isn't real, but I need you to go there. I need you to completely dive into just a completely unrealistic fantasy. And what is interesting, every single time I do that, I give them the option if they want to be 100 feet tall, if they want to have 10 arms, I give them all these, they can be anything. They always end up fantasizing about something that is absolutely doable in the third dimension. And then I'll come to them and I'll say, that is completely doable. Why aren't you doing that? And then they will realize that they don't believe that they can do it. They believe other people can do it, but they don't allow themselves to. And I said, why? This is what you're supposed to do. If it wasn't what you were supposed to do, you wouldn't imagine it. Your imagination is what's real. It's the real, true you. We're now going to expand that into what you imagine being on the other side of this dimensional mirror, where you really can be and do anything you can imagine. If you start imagining yourself as this really amazing, powerful, unbelievable being, that's what you're going to be. Because you won't be able to imagine it if it doesn't exist. In fact, physicists tell us this. Physicists say that we live in a reality that has infinite dimensions, and if you can imagine it existing, it has to exist. It has to. Even if it's impossible here, it has to exist somewhere else. So this is true for you also. We're going to live that. Okay? That's where we're headed. So imagine your 5D avatar. Do you want to live 1,000 years? Do you want to be 8 feet tall? Do you want to be a Sasquatch? I don't know. I don't care. Imagine your avatar, because that's who you're going to be. For those people that stay wrapped up in self-hatred, anger, resentment, fear, manipulation, abuse, narcissism, they're going to create that. They're going to create a 2D world and they're going to go live there. So it's up to you where you live, and where you live will be based on what you imagine. Okay. So that's it for me. Again, remember what the point of this channel is to give you the practical physical tools to give you the ability to achieve everything I'm talking about. And that means doing the practices. First thing you got to do is you got to shift your body. As we say here, you got to keep your body clean and healthy. And that means you got to shift your body. Give your body the ability to shift energetically. This, in my experience, is mainly done physically through things like meditation, qigong, yoga, tai chi, those kinds of things. So go to thunderwizard.com, subscribe to the Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong, simply press play. By the way, I've made it easier. When you go there, as soon as you subscribe, there's going to be a little box that'll say 90-Day Challenge. There'll be a little box that say Lightning Qigong. You click on those boxes and all of the relevant videos will come up. You don't have to go searching for them. Start with phase 1, press play, just follow the directions. Don't try and overthink it. A lot of people are saying things like, I have to get the basics down first and then I'll subscribe. No, you don't. I tell you exactly what to do. I give you A to Z. You don't have to think about it. So don't overthink it. Go and subscribe, Warrior 90-Day Lightning Qigong. Courses.thunderwizard.com. All of my video courses, all of my sorry, too much energy hitting my brain. All of the certification programs that I have, all of my services, my astrology services, my rune reading services, and my books. If you go to see my name right there, you go to michaelwilliamdenny.com. You'll see all of my books, including The Shamanic Secret Commandment to a Perfect Life and Interdimensional Revolution and Extraterrestrials Are Coming to Earth. I recommend that you get those books and look on the playlist of the channel for all of the free stuff. If you want free stuff, go to the playlist of the thunderwizard.com YouTube channel. And of course, start searching through all the videos, 15 years of videos here. So anyway, all right, now I'm happy to take any questions if there are any. If there's a question, please write the word question in all caps and then ask your question. And if you want to, you can share a feeling. All right, so Lightbringer question. Do I need to open my meridians to handle the energy field of an ET or an angel? I asked because I saw one, and as I got closer, it flew off. My experience is that some of them seem to be able to turn up and turn down the volume of their energy. Some of them, if they're going to break through somebody's really thick third dimensional armor, only the really powerful ones can do it. First couple times out, now looking back on it, I connected with ETs who were there with me, but because my 3D boundary was so thick, they couldn't get through. So they said, we're going to have to bring in somebody a lot more powerful who's going to crack you open. And that's exactly what happened. An extremely powerful one showed up the third time, and he did. He cracked right through my aura, and he was extremely powerful. So the answer to your question is, everybody needs to be doing this. Just to get into 5D, you're going to need to open your meridians to handle the energy of this new 5D Earth. Just to be able to handle the solar wave energy that's hitting us now, you're going to have to open up your meridians. So, I think that's a given. You should do that. This is why I give you all this stuff to do. Look, if you're new to the channel and or you don't want to pay the money, whatever, go look for the Hool breath and look for Awakening the Immortals and Heaven, Earth, Qigong meditation. Okay, those are extremely powerful energy practices that will do everything that we're talking about. If you just picked one of those three and did it every day for a half an hour, and made sure that you did every day, 10 minutes a day, whatever you can do, you'll shift and you'll change. Do something. But in terms of do you need it, depending on the ET, I don't know, it depends on, their particular energies and all of that. All right. What else? And if what you're saying is accurate, the reason why it flew off, if that's true, it might have been because of your fear. Because the moment that you show fear, like if they ask you, do you want to connect? If you say no, they will instantly disappear. It's like, they have to respect your boundaries. So they're never going to, again, this is why, they're not evil demons. Demons don't respect your boundaries, even though in order for a demon to do something to you, you have to allow it in on an unconscious level. But the same is true with these guys. You have to, be willing to, you have to, even if you're scared, you have to be willing to reach out and go beyond your fear. Otherwise, they won't interact with you because they don't do that. Shadow Dragon question. I have been doing many of your practices, including the 90-Day Warrior Challenge. My question is about the Maoshan practice. At this time, is fighting spirits or demons needed or necessary? I'd really rather that you tell me why you're asking that question. Let me tell you this about my belief about the Maoshan practices. The Maoshan practices, the reason why they destroyed demons was because it is a practice that shifts your body to a higher dimensional energy. And when higher dimensional energy meets lower dimensional energy, the lower dimensional energy always gets destroyed or runs off. So spirit fighting wasn't really about fighting. In fact, when I first learned this, after my first or second class, I came home and I started getting myself into the postures. Looking back on it now, I know what it was. There was a light being that showed up. But I felt this presence next to me, and I felt this rush of, now I feel it all the time, this rush of really blissful, powerful energy. And then I had this picture in my head of a nuclear bomb going off, and then I felt this message that said, this is what you're learning, this is the power of it. If you abuse it, we will take it away from you. And then the energy left. So from the very beginning, this energy I was told it wasn't about fighting. There was a time in human beings past where people needed to protect themselves. And so, especially the southern Chinese arts, those mountainous areas of southern China, it was basically a very unsafe place to be. There was bandits and gangs everywhere. And, you could get attacked, going from the farm field to your house. So you had to learn how to defend yourself. And if whatever you could get your hands on. So if you had, this is where all the chi power comes from, is because these people had, if you're a small person and some guy comes at you, a big, huge guy with a club, you're going to have some other kind of tools to be able to fight them off. So people were given an opportunity to learn spiritual and energetic practices to defend themselves. But the Maoshan practices are not about fighting. And I feel very confident that in 5D, I'm still going to be teaching. I'm going to be teaching classes of the 5-element Maoshan practices. I feel confident in that. Because the way I teach it now, I don't teach people how to use it to fight. If somebody really wants to, I can, but it's just not necessary anymore. I don't even think about self-defense at all anymore. But the practices will still be there. And we see this with Tai Chi. So you see Tai Chi, right? How many Tai Chi guys do you see going out and picking fights? Doesn't happen. And that's because what people are doing now is they're doing an energy practice. They're doing a form of moving Qigong. But originally, Tai Chi Chuan meant the grand ultimate fist. And these were fighters that had so much energy. Like, the one guy went to go test himself. One Kung Fu master went to go test himself against one of these Tai Chi masters. And their fists, they both punched at the same time and their fists caught each other. And the Tai Chi guy's fist, nothing happened to him, but the other guy, all the bones in his hand got shattered. And he said, Tai Chi Chuan, grand ultimate fist. But look at it now. Nobody uses it for fighting. So this is how one of the ways that higher dimensional beings teach us these practices that open our meridians is that your need is, I got to learn how to defend myself. And so, okay, well, what we'll do is we will hide a spiritual practice inside another thing that these people are going to use for whatever reason they're going to use it. And just like with Tai Chi, this Maoshan stuff won't be about fighting anymore. So, and the way to fight demons is by doing the practice. When I've done the practice, there are times I know that I've come up against spiritual things, but it's not like the movies where we're both sitting there, and there's a demon with a demon sword and I've got my laser. It's not like that. It's you're doing the practice and all this energy comes up, and then all of a sudden you feel this wave of energy come over you and you feel really tired, or all of a sudden a horrible memory will come up or a fear will hit you, and then you go, oh, now I know what's happening. And then you keep doing the practice. You dive deeper into the practice and more energy comes through you, and then you feel something leave. That's what spirit fighting is. It's not what you're thinking it is, I think. And so that's the same with people now. A true spirit fighter doesn't ever have to touch another person. All they have to do is just walk in the room. In fact, that happened to me once. I was, this is at a yoga class, and I was just in the corner doing the teacher hands. Those of you who know what that is, if you're doing the lightning qigong, I've already taught you how to do the teacher hands. I was doing the teacher hands, and this woman bolts up. And she says, "What are you doing?" I said, "I'm just getting warmed up. I'm just doing my practice." And then she, like she was a marionette on strings, something pulled her up and just walked her out the front door. And I thought that was really weird. And I asked her about it afterwards, and she said, "Whatever you did went right through me. I felt this energy go through me, and it was very uncomfortable." And then I found out later that she had been interacting with what she called a ghost. So she had a spirit that she had brought with her. And so all I was doing was just doing my practice, and it made her leave. She had to leave the room. So spirit fighting isn't about fighting. It's about bringing up the energy level. And this practice is a downloaded practice from higher dimensional beings. And I have other videos on here, and I talk about how using the 8 directions, which we call the 8 doors or the 8 gates, which is you're moving into each one of the 8 gates. This actually is kind of unlocking the 3D and pulling into actually, I think from the 6th dimension, pulling 6th dimensional energy down into 3rd dimensional space. And so it was a way for these higher dimensional beings to teach people like me how to, experience other realms. So that's why I'm certain, because if we're just in a higher version of 3D, and this is, as I believe it to be, 6th dimensional energy, People are going to be learning that in the next world. So your question, I'm going to change it. Is this energy needed or necessary? Absolute answer to that question is yes. Lightbringer question, is there a symbol we can use to connect to the Maoshan lineage? Yeah, it is the yin yang. I mean, you guys don't realize how powerful that symbol is. And I put a video recently. I've got it up here. I'm now dealing, as far as I know, I'm working directly with the deities associated with yin and yang, and getting to the sources of this power. The power is absolutely unbelievable. So, yep, you wear that yin yang symbol, and the vast majority of people who wear it don't have any idea what they're wearing or the power of it. But yeah, that's the symbol. There are other things as well, but that is good enough. Agent of the Universe, honest feeling. I feel very scared of higher beings taking away my power. Let me ask you a question, Agent of the Universe. What power is it that you think you have? I mean, let's look, I know something about your life. I won't talk about it. But let's look objectively at your physical life. Where you live, who you live with, the kind of life that you have. How much power do you have? What power are they going to take from you? On a 3D level, I don't know that there's a whole lot of power that they can take from you. Am I wrong about that? I understand your feeling. I feel very scared of higher beings taking away my power. I'd rather have power that cannot be taken, regardless of how I use it, although I don't want to use it for bad. Well, you already did just by saying that. There's a fear. You already have a fear that you don't trust, that these beings don't have your happiness and your best interest at heart. You've already said that because you don't want them to tell you how to use the power. So you know better than they do. And you want to have the right to misuse it. That's what you're saying. I want this, and I want the right to use it destructively. I would rather use this destructively than be happy and safe and loved. So you're conflating power with love, and this comes from fear. So you're absolutely right. I know you're feeling very scared. So the only way you're going to learn beyond that is to really open that fear up and interact with these beings more. It's completely up to you. It's your choice. You say it's like having tons of possessions and not wanting the government stealing my stuff. It's not like that at all. It's okay with me if you see it that way. It is nothing like that. The government wants to take your stuff. The government wants to control you. The government wants to own you, manipulate you, at the very least through taxes. These beings don't want anything from you. They only want you to be happy. They only want to give you. They don't want to take anything from you. So, I understand your fear, but it's a distortion. It's your projection. This is all your projection, by the way. And it's okay. We all have them. Or having higher forces take my inheritance from me. So, Agent of the Universe, you need to go back and listen to what I was saying earlier. The only thing that has come from my interaction with higher dimensional beings is that they have told me my inheritance, which I never would have known if they hadn't showed it to me. There's no way for me in my 3D avatar to have the slightest clue of who I am out there. And I can't figure it out in my 3D self. And so they came to me and they said, let us show you who you really are. Let us show you the power you really do have. Let us show you all of that and show you where you're going. So that attitude you have is only going to serve to keep you from knowing what your inheritance is. How can they take something away from you that you don't even know you have? He's got a huge rush of energy as I said that. Anyway, it's really helpful for you to work through your distortions. You're projecting onto them all of your own self-hatred, negativity, fear, all of that. This is all your stuff, and you're putting it on them. Scully the Hypno Skull. I keep telling you about something you should be doing. You need to do it. You got a lot of detoxing that you need to do. You know what it is I've told you to do. If you really respect me, you got nothing to lose. Go do it. You need it. Shadow Dragon, answer to whom? Oh, you're answering me? Let's see. I must have asked you to tell me why you wanted to know that. I have an understanding that there are beings who want to help humans and those that do harm. I have read where the Maushan guarded a portal within the mountain to keep the demons from entering the physical world for the purpose of protecting the rest of humanity from the influences of very dark negative beings. That is true. Josh B. Feeling. Oh yes, my doubts are outside influence. Knowing psychosis or clairvoyance can be tricky with that. That's not a feeling, Josh B. A feeling, there's an emotion involved. These are just these are some random thoughts that you're having. It's not a feeling, right? I mean, this is basic stuff. It's really important too. Feelings are, I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm scared, I'm frightened, I'm excited, I'm confused, I feel love. You know, these are emotions. There isn't one emotion in there. All you've done is take your intellectual thoughts and thrown it out there. And you expect us to get a feeling from that. And this is important because this is a very, very serious human flaw, 3D flaw. You have a lot of feelings attached to that thought. And you think by sharing that thought, that we will somehow feel the feeling that you have attached to it, and we won't. You need to actually share the feeling. Okay, Scully the Hypno Skull, there's so many things that you really need to do. One of them is you need to learn to be a student, and a student doesn't talk, a student listens. Bear in mind, every time you open your mouth, you give me more ammunition to show you, and you want to fight with me. If you want to fight with me, you don't belong on my channel. If you want to argue with me when I tell you, here's what I see and here's what you need, if you want to argue with me, you don't belong on my channel. If you do that in a normal situation, like you go to a kung fu teacher or a yoga teacher, and if you start to argue with them or defend yourself, they're going to say, thank you, there's the door, I'm sorry, I can't help you. This is a different situation, but you need to know that. You say, I'm totally sober, but I've been accused on being drugs my whole life. I know that's not true. You're not telling the truth. You have said that you've done certain drugs very heavily. In fact, you bragged about it. So if you're sober now, what I'm trying to tell you is that you need to detox mentally and emotionally. Now, I'm only saying it because you decided to keep talking about it in front of the whole world. Otherwise, I wouldn't have said anything. But I don't care if you do it or don't do it. It's completely up to you. I'm just telling you. You need to work that. You need to work that 12-step program for your own sanity. I don't care if you say you're sober now. That's meaningless. That has nothing to do with it. Having said that, I'm not going to engage with you any further. You need to learn how to start listening and talking less. You can't listen and talk at the same time. You need to learn how to listen more. If you want what I have, that's what I got to help you with. Let's see, what else? I'm not going to answer that question. I already did. Sean Huffman question. Hi, I am worried that doing a drug, pot, may cause me to be unable to ascend. Any thoughts? Well, I'm not here to tell who's going to make it and who's not. I don't have that power, and I have no interest in having that power. But if you are doing something that you think might prevent you from being able to expand, there's a real simple solution to that. Stop doing it. And if you have a hard time stopping doing it, as I've said, there are no shortage of 12-step groups. If pot is one that you might be addicted to, you can right now stop watching this video right now and go on to Google and type in Marijuana Anonymous meeting near me, and you can get started with that right away. And I guarantee you, if you do that and you work those 12 steps, whether or not pot is an issue about this or not, those 12 steps will help you to expand. So the real simple answer to that question: stop doing weed, maybe get into Marijuana Anonymous so that you can find out what the core reason is for why you do it. It's not so much that you do it, it's the reason why. And you don't know what that is right now. So good luck with that. I hope that's helpful. Okay, what else? Shadow Dragon. Okay. Agent of the Universe, honest feeling. Different feelings have been coming up. Pleasing and a lot of unpleasant. It feels like everything is coming up bad fish. So you haven't shared the feeling. What bad feeling? You have to put a name to it. What pleasing feeling? You have to put a name to it. All right, so Scully, I wish you all the best. I'm not going to interact with you anymore. If it's come to the point where you know better than me, I can't be your teacher. So I wish you all the best, my friend. Enjoy whatever it is you do with your life at your request. I am not going to do anything to help you. That is at your request. So I've given you my suggestions, which you can choose to accept or reject. You've chosen to reject them. Not only that, but you've chosen to publicly say that I'm wrong and you're right, and therefore I can't teach you. So I guess we're done. So best of luck, whatever you decide to do. Anything else? Nothing else. I don't see any other questions. Okay, so that's it, my friends. I wish you all the best. Focusing on imagining what you want to be. You want to live 1,000 years? You want to be the master shaman of the universe? Do you want to be the queen of all, I don't know, whatever it is that you want? This is what's going to take us to our next reality. So I wish you all the best. If you have comments or questions, you can leave them on the YouTube comment section. If I like your comments, if I like your questions, I'll make a video about it. All right, that's it. I wish you guys all the best. It's really sad to hear people, I mean, I get it, but it's really sad for me to listen to people make excuses and choose to stay limited. It really saddens me. I wish, here's an honest feeling. It saddens me. I wish I had the ability to motivate you to take actions to empower yourself. But I don't have that power. Everybody's got the power to do themselves, and it's sad that people have to justify to the whole world to hang on to things that aren't helping them, even after they verbally say, this isn't working for me, I need help. And once you give them the option, they want to argue with you about it. This is the sad part about where we're at. And we've got to move past this. Working with higher dimensional beings, it's almost impossible to do that and work with them. You really have to be willing to face yourself and drop all of your self-defense argument. You've got to be able to do that. In my experience, listen, everybody's got their own experience. In my experience, that's the way it's got to be. Anyway, that's it for me, guys. I wish you all the best. And Sean Hoffman, welcome to the channel. I see you asked a question. If you have a question, write the word question and ask me about something that I teach. But I don't believe the polls are going to shift, but I don't think it matters. We are going through a solar wave event, which if you watch other videos on my channel, I go into depth about that. I won't do that now. I won't take up your time with that now. Thank you, my friends. I wish you all the best. Thank you so much for showing up. As always, if I've done or said anything that has hurt you or offended you in any way, please know that my honest desire is to be as helpful as I possibly can. And even if that means telling you something you don't want to hear, I'm willing to lose your friendship and your love of me if it means that perhaps something I say will be helpful to you. So that's it. I wish you all the best, my friends, and I love you all, and I will see you all next time. Take care.